Hello, friends. It's John Klein, third of episode 214 of Shadow and Flame of Magic, your premier Kitty Pride, Lockheed, and Magic podcast. And today we are going to review ROM issue 17 and then 29.9 the end too. It was a very light week of comics, but that's the typical for the fifth week of the month, the rare times we have that. Um, Originally I was going to do Wonder Man Volume 3, number 5 to tie into Wonder Man, but earlier this week we lost legendary artist Sal Buscema. Um, Jam DeMantis and Sal Buscema have my favorite run of Spider-Man of all time, the Spectacular Spider-Man from like 185 to 200. They made an essential volume that I would love to own a copy of one day, but it's so expensive. Um, but yeah, and J.M. DeMantis, my favorite Spider-Man writer of all time, Sal Buscema, my favorite Spider-Man artist. Whenever I think of Spider-Man in my mind's eye, it's the Sal Buscema Spider-Man. Um, and just like it's just a great run of. Have you ever read Maxim Carnage, which I would highly recommend, another top five best Spider-Man um stories? Uh, like they do a third of that. And then Jam DeMantis, of course, wrote Craven's Last Hunt, and he's still writing comics, and I love that guy. I've interacted with him a bunch on Blue Sky, and just yeah, so I just a huge fan of this guy's. I feel horrible about Sal Buscema's passing. Jan DeMantis wrote on Blue Sky like, "Hey, I just saw Sal at his 90th birthday party. Like, you know, doing great." And then literally hours later, he posted, I'm sad to say, hours after his party, Sal Buscema died. And it's like, and this was a real head trip for me to be like, wait, did I misread that thing or his original post? And I was like, no, no, that said his party. Then it turns out they threw his 90th birthday party, imagine with friends days earlier, probably just worked out with everyone's schedules. And then, he died 2 days before his 90th, which of course makes me think of Betty White dying 2 days before her 100th birthday. It's just like how horrible, he probably just your headspace of like, oh, I'm going to see my birthday in a couple of days. How great. But yeah, it's just devastated when I was downsizing my comic book collection, from just whatever I own to purely a Kitty Pride Lockheed and Magic collection. It was sad to see those Spectacular Spider-Man issues go, or just my Spider-Man collection at all, but we started chipping away at it, selling pieces of it to like my comic shop. And it just like it was like 20 boxes or so. And now I got it down to, oh no, no, I bet it was like 40 boxes, and now I have it down to 20. What is it? One, two, three, and then it's six over. Yeah, 18 boxes. Um, Anyway, but while winnowing it down, I was reminded about Sapasima actually had a short run of New Mutants comics, and he's a co-creator of ROM. I think it was Montel made the action figure, but it was up to Bill Mantlo and Sal Buscema to create all the backstory besides, walking toaster who fights aliens in space. But they created everything around him that we all love about Rom. And yeah, so it's just legendary artists, penciler, inker, Sal Buscema just, you know, no longer with us. His legend will continue. One of the greatest things about being an artist is that your art lives beyond, and he was a legendary artist, so hopefully other people will remember him as well. Um, yeah, so just let's get into ROM 17. It came out April 1981. Shortly after Uncanny X-Men 142, which will play effect in a minute, 200 years ago, the evil dire rafts threatened the peace-loving planet Galandor. In their home world's darkest hour, a thousand brave young Galordians sacrificed humanity itself to become cyborg warriors, a last desperate line of defense. Though hopelessly outnumbered, these space knights triumph and pursue the remnants of the Wraith horde across the universe, now alone in the enemy's mightiest stronghold on a backward planet called Earth. One Galadorian warrior faces his most awesome challenge. Stanley presents the greatest of the space knights, ROM. And we get an amazing splash page. This is brought to you by storytellers, writer Bill Matlow and artist Sal Buscema, letterer Michael Higgins, colorist Ben Sean, editor Joe Duffy, editor-in-chief Jim Shooter, and consultant Chris Claremont. Um, and this episode, this issue is titled Hybrid. Because not only did they co-create ROM, but they also co-created my least favorite Marvel character of all time. Whenever someone's like, post a villain you hate, like this would be the guy. Um, the computer screen of the mutant detector device Cerebro wails off the walls of a certain Westchester County private academy. In response, the students of Professor Charles Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters come a running. They are the Uncanny X-Men. And Kitty's like, "What is Cerebro? What's this all mean?" And it's like, "Oh, Kitty, like it's 142 just came out. You just swap mental places of your future self. You know what Cerebro is." But the five mutants, for that is what they are, each possess a power beyond that of mere Homo sapiens. Gather around their wheelchair-bound mentor, Professor X, he whose incredible mind makes him one of the most mightiest mutants of them all. And he's detecting that there's a mutant and they going to need to go investigate it. They reference Magneto, the X-Men's arch foe, Magneto, an evil mutant. Like, thanks, editor Joe. It is with a measure. Oh wait, does Kitty say anything else? Oh yeah. So Xavier explains things, but what's he mean? Up to us to discover. It was with a measure of pride that Charles Xavier watches his X-Men depart, and Kitty's like, "Hey, wait up!" But there is a fear also, for he has seen too many of his students, his children, come to grieve. He would protect them from that side of being an X-Man if he could, but he cannot. And so Professor Xavier sits before his monitors and machines and watches and worries and prays. At that very moment, hundreds of kilometers to the south in the very county in question, this old gentleman's coming up. And we get the first of Sal Buscema did very distinctive faces that you can almost always tell a Sal Buscema face. Dr. John Steines is a simple man prying a old time-honored trade. He's more at home delivering babies than deciphering mysteries. In an age when most physicians avoid house calls like the plague, Dr. John Steines answers the summons of his patients as he has done every year for 35 years. Yet he cannot help but feel this time is somehow different. So he walks in and comes across. Oh, the voice is weak, faint, as close to the grave as a voice can come. Dr. Steinis' eyes adjust to the dim light inside the farmhouse and he sees Marjorie. And she's supposed to be a very younger woman, but here she's very elderly. And then her husband comes in who hasn't aged. And they're just like, "What are you talking about?" And then her husband turns out is a dire wife. And so he directs him to the other room, his mind reeling in horror and confusion. Doc Steinus is nevertheless forces himself towards the open door. It was in this very room 15 years ago that he brought Jacob Mark's son into the world, and it just stinks to high heaven. Dr. Steinitz has seen death before, brought about by accident or disease, but the horror that greets him in a distorted child's voice can have no natural origin save from the beyond the grave. It is more than Steinitz' human mind can bear. And then when the good doctor has fled for his life. I guess someone must have had the question of, well, what do you do? Like, what happens if a dire raff and a human have a baby? And it's like, well, wouldn't you like to know? And it's one of those like, I wish you never asked the question. Jacob Mark's only answers fit a gurgling laughter and a stench like that from a crypt. A short distance away, Clarington's county coroner Silas Lane arrives by invitation to the home of Jonathan and Sarah Clark. And here's another example of this gentleman's face of a Sal Buscema face. Something about the lines around his face, um, and the eyes. Uh, Sal Buscema was always fond of an all white eye of a tiny pupil to show shock and dismay. And he enters the room, and Rom's just sitting on a couch, just like, or a chair, like a regular guy. And he's like, "Believe me," Jonathan Clark explains, "I thought they were just like you. I discounted my daughter's Brandy's wild tale of aliens disguised as humans until last week as Brandy's wedding when two bridegrooms showed up. One, a real estate the real Steve Jackson, shot the other in death. The creature revealed itself as it really was a dire wraith. Silas Lane removes a handful of index cards from his attache case and quick review reveals. And then here's a great panel where you just see all the different faces of Sal Buscema, all the faces Sal Buscema can draw. Soon, the war of gasohol-driven snowmobiles follows the wash of Rom's rocket pack across the West Virginia hills. His crimson eyes screams, scanning the snow-covered landscape from his vantage point of high. Rom is the first to see. Excuse me. It's been a week. Making no comment, Rom summons from the subspace his energy analyzer. Oh, it turns out Hybrid's mother isn't dead. She's walking around. Set on a narrow beam, it registers the life force of the Wither Old Crone, identified to him as the earthbound woman Marjorie Marks. And then Jacob turns into a dire wraith, honestly, to say dire wraith, and confronts Rom. And he's like, do what you will, but first. As Brandy Clark and Steve Jackson rush the frail Marjorie Marks away, Rom confronts the wraith, who gives the whole explanation. Here's another sequence of him being a wraith to taking human form. And he met a nice lady. Later, I felt certain stirrings within me caused by this Earth girl that could only be what the humans call love. More than a decade after my arrival on Earth, I, a dire wraith, took a woman of Earth to be my wife. Ours was a happy marriage. Marjorie never questioned my hesitancy to have a child, though I knew she wanted one dearly. At last, sure of my adopted humanity, I dare try. 15 years ago today, Dr. John Stern has delivered our son James. He appeared human in all respects. Years later, my Wraith heritage, which I had managed to submerge in my memory, resurfaced with a vengeance. I tried to disguise myself from my people by displaying shock, horror, revulsion, any human emotion. I should have slain them or run from there with my wife and son. But untold centuries of utter obedience to the Wraith elders proved too strong to overcome. May heaven forgive me. On that day, our marriage died. Behind locked doors, my son Jimmy was initiated to secrets of his arcane ancestry, and he proved a receptive pupil. As his parents, Marjorie and I were suffered to live. I had no will to resist, but my wife proved stronger. And you see his mother confronting him, and he throws a toy across the thing with his mind powers. My son had become all that the Wraiths hiding here in Clarington had hoped he would be: cold, callous, cruel, and powerful beyond measure. Marjorie kept trying to reach Jimmy to reclaim him. He tolerated her as long as the Wraith's elders came to entertain and tutor him. Then a week ago, they stopped coming. He had scolded Marjorie out of pique for his own amusement. I have had enough. And then Jimmy just throws him around. As I watch in helpless horror, my son aged my wife, his mother, 50 years in seconds. Without hesitation, the Silver Space Knight enters the farmhouse. His cyborg circuitry registers intense code. But that his crimson eye sensors have already revealed to him. God's a gladiator. Mile High Comics with a 2-page wide spread. How awesome is that? Um, this year, X-Men issues 6 and 7, which is Uncanny X-Men 6 and 7, you can get for $25. And issues 141 and up, 75 cents each, so cover price. And Rom gets closer. It is colder still, but mercifully, Rom cannot smell the charno reek which drove away Dr. Steines. He can, however, sense the unnaturalness of the presence in the room. A presence in which, in the guise of a pleasant, bright-eyed 15-year-old, hovers 6 feet above his bed. Rom's energy analyzer glows, but even the stalwart Space Knight is unprepared for the utter magnificence his ruby red eyes reveal when trained on Jimmy Marks. So regular kid, and then horror beyond horrors, hybrid. Disgusting. Not only is he gross to look at, but his personality is gross. Like a 15-year-old boy who has powers of telepathy and then also not afraid to kill someone, has certain thoughts on what women should be like to him. Horror Rom, why not? That's as good a description as any for one born of both Wraith and human parents. One the whole world will soon call hybrid. The Silver Cyborg has traversed numerous galaxies in his 2 centuries quest to eradicate the evil of the dire wraiths. But not all the screen scenes of soul deadening devastation he has witnessed in Wraith Kind's wake could have prepared him for the monstrous malignancy that is hybrid. And then they start fighting. And I do like how one's like a monstrous ghoul and the other one's a sleek white toaster. His father comes into the room to be like, stop! And then he gets a pitchfork thrown through him. With the swiftness of thought, the very pitchfork which Jacob Marks had thought to use to end the menace of his mutant son leviates off the floor. And he's a mutant because of the whole dire race slash human. Like, not mutant, like, hey, he turned 15. Like, he was well, maybe it is just a loose definition of mutant. And finds its final resting place in Jacob Mark's heart. He dies instantly, his Wraith spirit taking flight to wherever Wraith spirits go, even as his decades-old human shell distinguishes and drifts as dust down to the floor. And that's a pretty awesome sequence too, like human body, ghost-like, and then just a fade, a shadow of who he used to be. And then they continue the fight, fight, fight. Awesome pacing as ever. they got they're at each other's throats, which is pretty cool. In a coruscating corona of cosmic force, Rom's neutralizer, summoned forth and from subspace, materializes in the Space Knight's outreached hand, and he zaps him dead center. And it shakes him, but he's not quite taken down. Standing his ground, the horror called hybrid laughs in the face of the full fury of Rom's neutralizing assault. An assault that tears apart the modest farmhouse that saw both the creature's birth and the murder of the alien father by his even more inhuman son. You have done your worst, Rom, and it is nothing. Nothing. He has like a squid like head. And Rom's like, I am forced to slay you. And then you hear a speech. A great speech, Tin Man, one that'll look swell carved on your tombstone. And final splash page of the issue's awesome. The X-Men have arrived to investigate the mutant for the presence. Chawal, Man of Steel, Wolverine speaks for us all. Be on your guard, Nightcrawler. Still haven't found the mutant cerebro detected, but the robot is dangerously powerful and dangerous. Obviously powerful and dangerous. Colossus said that was Storm. And Colossus says, but it is clear that he is evil, Storm. Else why would he have destroyed this farm and threatened this helpless boy? You look for answers, Colossus. Me, I can't wait to try my adamantium claws against the silver spacesuit. Kitty says, don't be afraid. You'll be all right now. The X-Men are here. Yes, I will be. And Kitty and Jimmy have, and then they have a little hybrid moment above them. Hybrid has taken on human form again to dupe these superhumans defending him while he devises a way to destroy us all. Jimmy's female opinions don't show up until like his second round of appearances that Rogue is in. I think it's here. This is 15, so I think that's 24 and 25. I'll look it up real fast. Thanks to um one of my favorite apps, and I probably should League of Comic Book Geeks. I can go to my collection, comics. Actually, no. Fastest way, type in ROM. It autocorrects to Tom because, of course, it would. This is not as fast as one would hope. Oh man, IDW did a ROM comic. Marvel Comics. I own issues 17, 18, and then I own issues 31 and 32, where he meets Rogue, Mystique, and Destiny. And so immediately goes like, who are these women? The issue 45 also. And those issues all reflect have flashbacks to 17 and 18. Oh, I also own issues 65 and 66. Kitty's in 65 for sure. And ideally she's somewhere in the background of 66, but you don't really see her. Next issue is a Silver Space Knight versus the Uncanny X-Men, and a child shall deceive them. There's a little ad here for the Savage She-Hulk on sale now. We get letters from Jim Carney from Laurel, Maryland, Lee Kiker from Creston, Iowa, and then Kevin C. McDonald from Warren, Pennsylvania. And Bill Mantlo is actually answering the letters, so that's fun. So yeah, that was ROM number 17. I got it from Mile High Comics because I recognize the near mint ad, which always worries me whenever I open a comic and gotta slip it back in, where it's like, please don't touch the tape. But a little trick, you put your thumb on the tape, there you go. Now, will future generations have my thumbprint? Sure. Am I that concerned? No. Should I be more concerned? I don't think so. Yeah, I don't feel that concerned. All right, so let's get to the next comic. So Wonder Man Volume 3, 5 next episode, ideally. I still haven't seen any of the episodes either. So 29.9 The End, issue 2. I just noticed Steve Orlando is writing this comic. This explains Scarlet Witch having such a big role in this. I like that he chose House of M Wanda, so he's able to at least play with a different version of her. Trust me, if I would could write Kitty Pryde into every project, I would, if given a chance. Mephisto and the other guy are fighting to see if the 2099 timeline is worth keeping, so it's very contest of champions. There's a big, this is a big action figures fighting other action figures miniseries. Um, that's fun. There's a Age of Apocalypse Weapon X versus 2099's Nova, who is Logan, who's still surviving this far into the future. I wish I could think this is cool, but my knee jerk emphasis on jerk reaction is just to roll my eyes and not enjoy Logan as a Nova. But what part of me is like this? The only way to make Nova cool is to make him another Wolverine, or does Logan need yet another group to be a part of? I don't think I'm the target audience for this comic. I like Miles Miguel and Spider-Man 3099 chatting. 39, I didn't even know there were other spiders, but don't worry, I'm sure this guy will be appearing in every future group shot of all the Spider-Verse events that'll be coming once that third movie comes out. Or heck, whatever they do, big Spider-Verse events, which seems to be we get two of those a year. House of M Wanda fights Jean Davidson, the Sorcerer Supreme of 2099. Sure. Red Hulk versus Red Hulk of 2099. They're just not characters I'm interested in. 80s Jean Grey has doubts if they should be fighting this hard as an entire timeline's at stake. House of M Wanda tells her to shut up, which is fun. Well, essentially, she just explains the stakes to her again. Also, the side of the fight have null seeds in them, and the last splash page is this entire side of the battle now have null faces, which look like drawn on Cyclops visors with a splash of that cartoon hypnotic effect. I think that's a perfect description. What makes Null so cool? Marvel's clearly invested in making him happen even after all these years. Whenever he appears in the comic I'm reading, I'm just not that impressed with him. I mean, he looks cool, I guess, but he seems to be involved in so many comics. Heck, he's even in that upcoming comic, Godzilla Infinity War. I just don't get the hype. Other comics very quickly. Iron Man 1, Carmen Carnero and Nolan Woodward's art carries every page of this issue. Some interesting plotting and a final page reveal that makes you want to see what that's about. Tony has yet another ticking bomb in his chest. Like, okay. Sorcerer Supreme 2 does not end with Man in the Prime reveal, so we had to wait to issue 3 for that. So I was wrong about my guess for that. Miles Morales, Spider-Man 42, apparently the last issue of the series. I really like how, same with issue 39, the Ultimate Universe, um, that might not actually be ending, but being reborn. So a lot of my interest in that universe ending has gone away. But like issue 39, the ultimate tie-in is just 2 pages at the end, so they can be inserted into a trade with no problem. And we see the Spot is being told to retrieve the origin boxes that are now on 616. So this is either Armageddon related or whatever the bigger event is, which I thought was Armageddon, but it doesn't seem to be connected to the Ultimate Universe yet. But we do know now that origin boxes will play a part of Armageddon, so it's all connected. Strange Tales 4 was very cute. I just love seeing Nico and Carolina together. They're great. Um, Next week's comics should be a bigger issue or a bigger week, and so a bigger episode. We have Magic and Colossus 1, which I'm extremely excited about. Uncanny X-Men 23, Wolverine 15, Storm, Earth's Mightiest Mutant 1, Ultimate Wolverine 14, Ultimate Endgame 2, Avengers 35, Godzilla Infinity War 1, Logan, Black, White, and Blood 2, and Planet of the Apes versus Fantastic Four 1. So naturally, got 2099, the end 2 does not shake up the top 10 comics of the year. So we are fine. That's going to happen. I was expecting, well, February should still, I mean, Magic and Colossus 1, I can tell you right now, is getting into the top 10 list. So spoilers for that. Uh, and usually what I try to do is have one series represented. So Ultimate Wolverine's probably going to replace Ultimate Wolverine 14 with will replace 13. But uh yeah, that is episode 214, everyone. Once again, just Sal Buscema, my favorite Spider-Man artist of all time. Truly sad passing. My wife was like, "Whoa, he was almost 90. Like he lived a long life," and it's like that's true. So, AIPT did do a article about it. I did a on Shadow and Flame with Magic.com. I wrote an article about the passing of Sal Buscema, and so just I don't know. I'm just still trying to wrap my mind around it. And I really wish I could have talked to him. like he wasn't ever on the socials, so I never got to tell him. I like to think that James DeMatteis was like, "Hey, that one guy keeps saying you're great," but I'm sure that conversation never happened. But at least I've told James DeMatteis, like I've written to him and he's responded. So like he knows that he's loved. And I'm sure Sal Buscema knew he was loved. And but if you get a chance to tell people you love them, I say do it because, you know, what if you don't get another chance to do it? And comic book writers get a lot of critique. So if you want to be a guy like me and just bug up a bunch of praise, I'm sure it might get annoying, but at least it's a nice annoyance, right? Um, Anyway, so that was episode 214. You can follow me on my socials at JackalsIII on TikTok, YouTube, Blue Sky. Um, I'm going to be posting images from the comic on the podcast's socials, S&FwM, the N spelt out, on Instagram and Blue Sky. And until next week, or next episode, which will be next week, I will talk at you next time. All right, everyone. Thank you. Bye.